You know, maybe it's better to just have no food at all this year. No, we can have it at my place again. I know I can't expect much from the production team. Forewarning though, that table stays a mess.
And it is that time of year again. So let's get into nothing for me. Originally, I wasn't going to do one this year. I think this year for me was full of ups and downs in terms of the channel. It started feeling a bit stale to me. Review, and it started to feel a little formulaic, and I started to lose interest. But with, you know, the sit-down Saturdays, the 4 dummies, if it teases the court, the Skull Affair, and then even a couple new things I planned for the new year, it started to feel fresh to me again and fun to me again, and then I started to have something to say again. I think that was a big issue with not wanting to do a song, was I didn't necessarily feel like I had anything I wanted to say. I always have something to say, but I didn't know if I had anything I wanted to really say. I actually have Joe KW to thank for that. I had that beat already. It was something I worked on for another project that didn't happen. I ended up playing it for Joe just to say, like, listen to this, I've made this and I'm loving it. And Joe heard it and was like, you have to do this. And I said, okay. So then I started kind of conceptualizing it. Every song has been different in terms of what the content has been. So, and last year, if you remember, I knew how I was gonna do the video. I said that in the making of Smoke and Mirrors, and I still wanted to stay true to that plan because I found that idea interesting of not having any perceived cuts. The problem was finding the topic. I think it was just going to be initially when I conceived that idea about what a day is like for me. It ended up being a bit heavier. So Solid Unit was kind of about the reviewers within that landscape at the time, which has mostly changed, and I'm thankful for that. I think it makes the whole community stronger. Burn was about trolls. Hungry was about the fandom and its insatiable appetite and toxicity regarding new products. Smoke and Mirrors was about the shadiness of distributors and the business of selling third party. And Nothing for me was about some of my viewers. And it's not meant to be an attack, but I've always had a very open door policy and I've always been very inclusive, and I will continue to do so. But I create this content for people to enjoy because when I started doing it, nobody was doing what I wanted to see. So I figured if I wanted to see it, someone else might want to see it, so I started doing this content. And then it's evolved and it continues to evolve, and I hope that it continues to evolve. So I'm happy to do it, and I'm happy for the relationship to simply be, I create the content is then consumed and either enjoyed, hopefully, or not, and then people move on with their day. On the other side of that, because of my inclusive nature, because I've always wanted to be for the community, I end up donating a lot of time to the viewership, which is cool. But then when I did the t-shirt earlier this year, and I just happened to notice that some folks who I have given a lot of my time to didn't go in on a t-shirt, or even hit me up to say, look, I would love to get a t-shirt, but times are tight, or whatever. It made me disappointed, I guess. It made me feel away. And I'm not sure if that's even appropriate, honestly. But it is true that I felt that way. So it kind of stemmed from there, and it kind of became about people that ask a lot from me, which I'm happy to do. But then when it's time for it to go the other way, it's not received the same way. And I can't honestly be mad at that, because relationships are built on give and take. And when the relationship is built on a lot of take and a little bit of give, or vice versa, and then that table is asked to be flipped, it's confusing for both parties. So I understand it, but I wanted to document that feeling. A lot of people think that Nothing for Me is about negative comments and internet hate and all that. It's not. I'm over that. Some stuff I want to take the time to reply to and speak about, you know, in case that one comment is representing 100 people's thoughts. I want to take time to comment on it if it's needed, but I'm not really bothered with the negativity anymore. I'm numb to it in a lot of ways. Every now and then one still gets me on, but for the most part. So I wrote the song because it was so late in the game and it was crunch time. I didn't have the time, energy, or resources to put towards doing it myself. So I actually went to a professional studio to have it done, and a guy named E Black engineered it, and I knew the guy who owns the studio, this guy Mike Mack, from a different time in my life, and it continued on. This guy was a complete professional. We had the song recorded, mixed, and on CD and in an email for me inside of an hour, which shaved a month off of the amount of work I would have had to put into it as someone who doesn't know anything about that to get that done. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for him. One thing that was cool that he did was you know, he has big monitors and he's playing the music through the monitors, but then he would hit a button and it would play through this little junky stereo that was in the corner, like a little boombox. And it was just to see how it would sound on something crappy. Like, I thought that was interesting. So I recorded it, it was done, and saved me a lot of time. So then I needed to conceptualize the video. I know I wanted it to kind of be about what I do during the course of a day, and then that helped reiterate the fact that, like, look, like, I'm busy. I'm busy with this stuff. And I still find time to respond to emails and DMs and all that, and just at the same time appreciate the time I'm taking. Obviously, this day is hyper condensed and it's over exaggerated. I'm obviously not going to Baltimore and Chicago in one day. But at the same time, there's stuff that does go on in a normal day that I didn't put in. I didn't put in the filming aspect. I didn't put in changing diapers, getting kids off the bus, and all that kind of stuff. So there's some give and take there. But anybody who's spent time at my house during a regular day for me has seen my work ethic. It is pretty much nonstop after my first cup of coffee in the morning, and then the wheels hit the road, or the rubber hits the road rather, and the day begins. So I wanted to document all that. We recorded at Baltimore Comic-Con. It was a little awkward because it's a huge convention and you're walking around in a skull mask and people are filming you.
That was awful. That was awful? And we need to do it again. All right.
Especially when you're working a table, you know, it created some interesting conversation both before and after, but luckily I was able to have Mikey Shoulders, a dear friend of mine, and Dante in it. I'm always trying to include people in it, so when I can get a shot and those people are accessible to me, I always try to get it. Getting that walking shot, we had to like wait for an opening because Baltimore Comic-Con is a huge convention, and we just had to wait for like the aisle to clear so we can make our way through. So that was interesting.
Perfect. That's what you want, I think.
All right. And that sort of train of thought kind of followed through the production process of it. And I'm going to try to recall certain aspects of it that I think would be entertaining. One was at the Travel Lodge. So I had that line about being in a travel center and on my way to Chicago, and that happened. So I was like, we gotta get the shot. We're tired. We've been driving for like 12 hours between 2 days, and we were like 20 minutes from the city. Everybody wanted to get settled in. My wife is trying to get the shot. Like, she's worried about the timing of it. She doesn't understand what I'm doing yet because I hadn't really put any of the video together, so she didn't understand how I wanted it shot. My baby is yelling Paw Patrol over and over again in the back seat. Some of this stuff can get very frustrating for everyone involved.
All right. It all takes place. I'm in that travel plaza. Like.
So I'm going like this? So don't get the travel plaza.
Yes, do get the travel plaza. See what I did?
I got some shots at the Realm party. I love the Realm of Collectors. I try to include them in everything that I do that's on that sort of level. That was a good time. And then Sam, shout out to Sam. He was from the UK, and I wanted to make sure he got in the video because when else am I going to see this dude? But as we're like walking in to get this shot, my man takes a look at the camera and waves to it. And it totally threw off the entire vibe of the shot. So luckily, throughout the video, I speed things up and slow things down to kind of make it fit the way I want it to fit in the sections. So I was able to speed up past his wave and get past it. But you'll see, it looks silly.
All right. You need to be somewhere else. I don't know where.
I don't know where.
Right, you should just be walking. You should be backing up through the whole room.
Let's do it.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
Look at that. What's up, nerds? No, we didn't get kicked out just yet.
Go ahead then.
Hang on, let me turn the Bluetooth off. No, play it again. You have to press play again.
Showing you how to use
Everybody! Let me get a round!
Go on in, guys.
Then we had the TFCon shot in the dealer room, which I wanted to get. Some people didn't know what we were doing, so if you watch some of the faces of the people on the side, it's a little interesting. Lord Shadowkeeper was there, and he came all the way from Puerto Rico, and he's had a rough year, and he wanted to be in the video, I wanted to be in the video, but unfortunately, when I look back at the footage, he was sitting a little off to the side, and I couldn't get him in the shot and also maintain the editing pace. So I'm going to show what that's like right here from like raw footage. It also shows how much I'm manipulating every scene because there's a lot of zooming in and zooming out that's not done on the camera. camera. It's done by me manipulating the shot. And then the rest of it pretty much got shot in my house, because it's about my day-to-day life, and most of it is spent in my house. I listen to a lot of movie commentaries, and they're always like, never work with animals, never work with kids. And there's a lot with my kids in this video, and I gotta tell you, it was trying. I understood what they meant. There, right there. Stay. All right. Stay right there. All right. No. Come here.
Kitchen's all clean? Because if it is, get on the mudroom.
There's no way the kitchen's clean. There's no way all those dishes in the sink are clean. There's no way. There's no way.
The shot that I did, that I'm a little upset because I don't feel like everybody gets the joke, but like I drink boxed wine because I'm low-key white trash, or at least one generation removed, maybe. And that's just a joke. I just don't care enough about like the level of a good wine. I think the box tastes fine, the Boda box. If you're up for sponsorship, Boda, I'm your guy. But that line, Joey popped the cork for me, and I wanted Joe to come out with like a wine corkscrew in a box. Like, how do I make this work? I don't think that joke really lands, but that shot we had to do 1,000 times because the blocking of that shot is actually fairly complicated. The way that my oldest daughter has to kind of come in, hit her lip sync line, walk around, like there's actually a lot going on that doesn't necessarily come through.
It's coming down now. Check it. Go ahead.
That's fact.
Nope. So you want to be like right here when you say that's a fact.
Okay.
Nope. Check your lips will doodle. Nope.
Oh.
The people that did the camera work on this was mainly Joe, my wife, and Chris Pickerton, if you're nasty. As a result, all the stuff with me in bed, Joe shot. So Joe and I were in the same bed together for a while, which I think we both enjoyed, to be fair, so to speak.
And just keep filming, just don't move once it turns 6.
Yep.
My wife, on the other hand, got super stressed out about the timing of the shots, and it created a number of challenging shoots to get done.
Take it back.
That's what he said. He said, you
No, like this. It was fine.
Jana was like, didn't go very well.
It's my fault. No, he didn't. You weren't on your cut.
Yeah, I didn't.
Did you get me in it?
Don't get too close because there's a hard time focusing.
But she got it done. Another shot that I don't feel like comes through the way I wanted it to was the diorama building, which was Chris, Joe, and myself, and Chris's wife Kelly shot it. I just don't think it translated as well because there's so much busy stuff in the background. But I do think that the editing from me pushing the hands in between that point in the video was pretty flawless.
How was that?
Horrible. Try again.
Well, there was another shot where I was like, I feed my kids some pasta, and my oldest daughter had a bad attitude, which she seems to have a lot more and more these days. I think hormones are starting to kick in. So I had to shoot around to like edit around her. But I'll show you the full shot so you can see just how grumpy a 11-year-old girl can be. There was the bathroom shoots, me getting ready in the morning.
Oh,
Did you miss your cue?
just keep going.
I'm in that shot. Nope. Oh, I'm in it again.
Keep going.
Oh, I'm terrible. Hold on.
Didn't feel right.
Nope. Didn't look right either. I got that one. I nailed it. It's perfect. Flawless.
Okay.
And the challenging one was the shower one. My wife timing it, reflections of the camera in the shot. Plus, I'm wearing the mask, the water's coming down, and like the water's making the mask stick to my face, and the mask itself is filling up with water. So like it was hard to breathe, so I had to keep like pulling the mask away to breathe. I felt like I was being waterboarded in that thing. I do a show that publishes irregularly called The Irregular Collectors with Joe and Chris, and we shot a scene to represent that, and we're actually having a pretty interesting conversation about birds, like just to like fake a conversation. I mean, it ended up being a real conversation, but I'm going to include that just so you guys can have a laugh, maybe.
I'm not sure if the Millennium Falcon is named after a proper bird.
But it makes sense for a ship to be named after a bird.
It does.
Are there any other animals that are mentioned in the Star Wars universe?
No,
Is there
they're
like
all small ponies and raccoons and bunny rabbits and chickens with feathers on their feet. All of those things do 100% exist in the Star Wars universe.
Owl and a snake too.
Yes.
But there's nothing named after it.
Correct, but they do exist.
I don't really give a shit.
What's your favorite bird?
But realistically, my favorite bird? Yeah, those are trash birds.
No, not trash birds.
Funny story.
A pigeon is a trash.
Another shot that I don't think the joke resonates as much is there's an ongoing joke with Robert D about me not cleaning my tub, because it's where I wash my paintbrushes for my diorama stuff. So my tub in my bathroom is kind of a disaster. So I wanted to walk in, look at the bathroom, and be like, no, I'm not doing that, and walk out, but I'm not sure how well that joke comes off. There's a lot of funny stuff regarding my wife and the filming of this thing, including the part where she says he's crazy and all that. Like, we had that set up on a tripod, obviously, but there's a lot of interesting stuff there. And the two last shots I got, one, I was laying down with the kids to watch a movie with them, which is something we often do, and I wanted to have The Last Jedi playing on the screen, but we were watching Christmas movies and I couldn't get it to work. And then lastly, a shot on my birthday with some of my closest friends and family are in that room, and that's nice to kind of document.
2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005. I have nice rapper hands with thousands.
You know, it's funny, this video probably was the biggest undertaking I've done in terms of like editing and shooting, because everything had to be timed so perfectly. Timing was so important to make sure that all the shots kind of went from one to the other, and it's not as effective as I wanted it to be or imagined it to be, but I think it's kind of the best that I can do with the skill set and equipment that I currently have, if that makes sense. But it was challenging, and I enjoyed the challenge of it, especially the editing process. I really enjoy editing these music videos. They're a lot of fun. There was so much work, and I had to rely on so many people, and I'm very grateful to them. I'm not good at relying on people. I mean, there was one shot that we had to get where my wife was literally holding an umbrella over the camera because I needed to get it outside, and it was raining, and it had been raining for days. It's funny that this video is about an hour worth of footage condensed into 5 minutes. So in that way, it was easy, because most of my music videos are about 5 or 6 hours of footage that get condensed into 4 minutes. So this was 1 hour into 5, but the shooting was far more difficult, because usually I can just kind of let the camera go and then cut it up as needed. But in this one, everything needed to be very precise, and focusing became an issue. Lighting became an issue. I actually ran a filter through the whole thing at the end to try to make it seem more unified, and I think it worked. But this one was challenging, but it was fun. And I want to take a minute and thank everybody that does support my channel and me, and I know who you are, and I don't forget those sorts of things, and it's most of the people that I deal with are a delight, and even the people that this song is kind of aimed towards are still delightful. It's just something that does kick around in my head. I think that little segment of, you know, this fandom is a one-way street, the ones that want a piece of me, they never bought a piece from me, they never bought a tea for me, a coffee or a tea for me, but everything they ask of me, they expect immediately. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't really bother me, but for this, when I was digging into this song, I think you could boil that whole song down to that moment. Usually the people that are the most supportive of what I do are the ones that end up asking the least from me. And they're the ones that I would, you know, go the extra mile for any day of the week. So I'm really grateful. I don't want it to be misunderstood. I'm very appreciative. I consider myself privileged to have the viewership and the following, for lack of a better term, I'm not crazy on that word, that I do. So thank you. I got another idea for next year. It might be time to criticize myself. I want to thank Joe and Laura, my kids, and Pinkerton for helping me get this done. I hope you enjoy it.